Hello, everyone. It is Jane Rachel, and I am back today talking about maladaptive daydreaming disorder. Today, we're going to focus on tips for overcoming maladaptive daydreaming, as well as what COVID has done, the increased time and social isolation, what that means for people with maladaptive daydreaming. And I am joined with two inspirational women who are both overcoming or in the process of overcoming their maladaptive daydreaming. Kristen Church, who you've met in the last interview that we've done on maladaptive daydreaming on this website. And we're joined today by Karina Lopez. Karina, I'd like to start with you. If you could just tell us a little bit about what maladaptive daydreaming means to you. And I know that you're doing better these days. You feel like you're doing a better job controlling it. So if you could talk a little bit about what that difference is, how you feel you're handling it today versus in the past.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Karina Lopez. I'll say that I've been maladaptive daydreaming since I was about 7. It started off innocently, and then I just realized while I was growing up, like I just kept daydreaming. I didn't see it as a bad thing. And then I just noticed as I got older, I suffered a lot from social anxiety. I was bullied. So I saw my daydreaming as like an escape, really, where I felt comfortable. I had friends, and I was like this better version of myself. Because I did suffer a lot with insecurity, and I've always been a dancer. So I grew up dancing. So music for me was always an outlet. And I just loved daydreaming to music. That was like my biggest trigger. I would just plug in the earphones and just daydream in my room for hours and just pace. And I thought, I mean, I always kind of thought it was this weird thing I had. And I was embarrassed to really like tell people what I did. And it wasn't until I got to college where I actually found out, oh, this is, there's a term to this, maladaptive daydreaming. And, you know, I figured, like, I saw that a lot of the symptoms I had growing up, and I still have today, really went with what I was reading on there. And I think to me, maladaptive daydreaming, I feel like, well, it's a to me, I do see it as an addiction. When I was younger, I did see it as like this innocent escape. Like I had, my friends. I made friends in my daydreams. I understand like people have different things that trigger them, whether it be like for me, it was TV shows, music, all of that. And I realized as I got older, I graduated from college and I was trying to start my career, just how much it interfered with my goals. And I saw it as this bad thing that I really need to try to get under control, because I could even be talking to people like directly, and I would just zone off and start thinking about like my other characters and stuff. And so that to me, I really saw that as a big red flag, and like that I had to get it under control.
It's so funny how the stories of some of our first, as Kristen knows, for years and years and years, I struggled to find anyone who daydreamed like me because it was before the internet. And yet our stories are so similar. Like I know both Kristen and I, music is a trigger. I think it is for most people with MD. And also the same thing with for me is it started off in childhood where I don't think it was a big deal, but it was in those older ages, high school and college, where I started to notice it was a problem. Can you just give a few more examples of other ways you said when you were talking to people you would drift off? Like how do you think it was negatively impacting your life at the time?
I noticed it was impacting me because so when I got my first job after college, and even during college, I knew that I would zone out a lot during class. I worked in financial aid, so that deals with a lot of numbers and money, and I have no idea how I survived in there. But I noticed I would actually get in trouble a lot because I would miss like certain numbers, or like a signature or something. And it's like, whoa, like, how did I miss that? Like, I could have sworn, this looked fine. And so I think, once I got older and I saw more responsibilities, and I had to face the consequences for that, because I would just daydream a lot during work. And that's when I started seeing like how much of an issue it was.
So you were daydreaming while you were working at the same time? You were,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
sometimes, yeah. And that's when it really freaked me out because, when I was younger, it started off, I would just listen to music or I would be in a car ride, and those were main triggers. But when I started seeing how often I daydreamed while doing like regular tasks, that's when it really started to freak me out.
Any idea of how much you were daydreaming at that point?
Like, you mean like how many hours per day
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's hard to tell because you're doing other things at the same time, but just a guesstimate or
I would say more than 5 hours for sure. Um,
okay.
Probably even more because even before I go to bed or right when I wake up, I'll stay in bed for like sometimes in like over 2 hours that I've
Wow.
stayed in bed after waking up. And that's like outside of work or outside of doing other tasks. And I've caught myself even while I'm driving, which really scares me. But um,
So,
so it's
since
hard to tell, but I know for sure more than 5 hours or
hours,
so.
right? And that's in addition to all the time while you were doing it to other
Yeah.
things. So the focus of this episode, or part of the focus, is on overcoming it. So I know that you've managed to limit it quite a bit. So can you talk about what you did and what kind of difference that has made in your life at this point?
Yeah, so it's been kind of interesting with the COVID pandemic because I've been working remotely for a while. I've been at home a lot. So the first few months, like I noticed I would wake up, stay in bed, daydream, and like just start answering emails like on my laptop in bed. And I noticed like it just wasn't productive. And, like I just, everything felt like a blur for me. So I think what's really helped during the pandemic, especially, is just setting up like a morning routine, which is, it's really hard. Like you hear about people saying, meditate, do a routine to stick to it, but what does that look like, right? So for me, like I wake up, I'll make like breakfast. For me, I've enjoyed that. I really like cooking. Um, so I got into stretching again. I developed like a skincare routine, which I did not do before because I think with the daydreaming, it's just really hard for me to take care of myself. So I feel like investing in those things and like for me now, my morning ritual is kind of like it's like really important to me. It's kind of like determines how I start off my day. I did recently go started taking medication for my depression, so I've noticed that that has helped me focus a bit better. It's easier for me to go to sleep. I feel like my mind's not wandering off as much. I also did delete all my social media because I noticed that triggered a lot of my daydreams. I felt very insecure, very anxious seeing things online, especially more so now during the pandemic when a lot of people are at home and you're just glued onto your phone. So I've noticed that taking a break from social media has helped a lot because I'm not comparing myself to other people. um, I'm not daydreaming as much about things I wished I had or what other people had. So that's helped a whole lot for me. So I think those things in general. And I also, about a year and a half ago, I stopped using earphones completely because that to me, like it wasn't enough to listen to music loud. Like I had to listen on my earphones. It just enhanced my experience. So I stopped using that about a year and a half ago. And I think that's really contributed to daydreaming a whole lot less.
I'm actually taking some notes. So if you see me writing about some of the things that you said, stop it,
Yeah.
including I've got morning routine, medication, getting rid of social media, getting rid of earphones, which in a second we're going to get to Kristen. And I think I remember from her story that music and eliminating music helped as well. But before we turn to Kristen, just tell me real quick, like how much of a difference has that made in your daydreaming? Like, so before it was 5 hours plus while you were working, do you feel like it's significantly easier now that you've done all of these things? And what is
Uh,
your look there?
yeah. Um, it's still really hard for me to answer that. I feel because I feel like I still daydream. I've kind of come to the realization that I think I'm always just going to daydream. It's just a matter of coping with it. I do have weeks where, depending how I feel, I'll just daydream for hours still. And I mean, that shouldn't. I see that I used to feel really guilty for that, but sometimes it's kind of like my mind just needs it, and I'll get back to work and become more focused, and I'll be fine. I'm still working on that. Again, I'm like still in that process to limit it. um
And
I
I
do
think
feel like it's decreased by maybe like a few hours, and I noticed that. Oh yeah. I've just noticed that because I find myself investing more time doing things I didn't do before. Like I got into reading, I got into cooking, going outside and just like walking or running. So I noticed that, I'm doing things I didn't do before, and I feel more present. And I think before I didn't do that. I'm like, wow, so like, is this what normal people do? Like they just kind of do things and they don't
that's
have to worry about, daydreams interfering with like basic things in life. But
that's
yeah, so that's one
amazing.
of the ways I've realized.
And I do think, I mean, obviously, I'm not a doctor, but just from my own experience, I don't know that the goal has to be getting rid of all daydreaming, right? Because it is a good thing. It's only maladaptive. It's interfering in our lives, and it sounds like you're feeling more present. Do you find that it's easier to get your work done, your work tasks done, or is that still a struggle?
It is a bit easier because I feel like I'm able to distinguish a bit more between my time daydreaming and then my time for work. When before I feel like I was just kind of meshing both worlds together, and I would daydream while working, and now I feel like I've gotten better at controlling, like, okay, during this time frame I'm going to finish these tasks and work, and then maybe I'll reward myself with like a few minutes of daydreaming. So I feel like it's more distinguished in a way, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. I want to bring Kristen in a little bit because like some of this I think just rings true from her conversation. I know that you're Kristen, that you're also overcoming maladaptive daydreaming as far as I think you feel like you're getting a better handle on it. And I do remember you saying that one of the tips was getting rid of music. Can you talk a little bit more about that and other things that you think helps you to keep it at bay, Kristen?
Yeah, getting rid of music was a big one. It did not stop the daydreaming. I adapted, but it takes the edge off because I think music helps to enhance and maintain, especially maintain in my case at least. So cutting it out, it didn't. It would go from several hours down to maybe 1 hour. It didn't get rid of it. It just made it better.
And again, I don't think getting rid of it, I've got plenty, not plenty, but I have two family members who daydream for a limited amount of times and love it. They do it for an hour a day. It's the problem when it's all day, every day. So maybe getting rid of it completely is not what we want. I don't know.
No, yeah, I don't even think that's possible. But the problem was, especially with the music, is I would listen to it at night, and I would sleep with my headphones on. So I'm not talking about like it went from 4 hours to 1 hour over the course of the day. It went from 4 hours to 1 hour while I was supposed to be sleeping. I got to wake up and go to work in the morning, and I just wasn't sleeping. And when you're tired, your mind wanders more. It just feeds this vicious cycle. So
That's huge. You're getting 3 extra hours of sleep a day.
yeah,
I will say this though, my older niece is living with me at the moment, and she overheard our last interview, and she was like, I can't believe she had to give up music. That's so sad. But music is
yeah.
such, that was her first thought, like, oh my God, why would someone have to give up music? But it is such a trigger, right? Like, how does the music just triggers our daydreaming?
It does. I mean, I will still listen in the car. I haven't got rid of it completely. Once in a while, I'll listen to a song or something, but if I'm going to hear it, I'm going to daydream. There's no way around that for me. I can't listen to a song and not do that. So I just had to get rid of it. And if anyone thinks it's just as simple as getting rid of music, it's not. It took me, oh my God, years to get used to doing that. It's not just I think for some people you can't just throw away your earphones and be like, okay, there we go, 3 extra hours of sleep.
So what got you to the point where you could get the 3 extra hours of sleep? So someone out here who wants to try it and they know that
Time. Yeah, time and willpower. And at the time, I hope he doesn't overhear me because he's in the kitchen. But at the time I was dating my husband, and I didn't couldn't sleep with headphones super loud, next to somebody else.
yeah.
So my first, foray into kicking music was accidental or circumstantial. And I considered breaking up with him. It's hard.
Wow. Because he was interfering with your daydreaming time, right? Basically.
Yeah, it was just so like, I don't know. I can't live the rest of my life not listening to my headphones all night. And that's really what it feels like. Like, do I want that?
Wow. So how did you do it? Little bit by little bit, or did you put other techniques in there? What, like, for someone else, let's say someone else is out there in the exact same situation, right? They're dating someone, they think they might love this person, but they're worried that they're going to interfere with their daydreaming time. What advice would you give to them? Or have same thing. Someone said the same thing. I spoke to someone, I don't remember now who didn't want to take a job because of it. Right? They were worried they had this great new job, but they were worried that daydreaming would get in the way. Like, so what advice do you have for that, for someone in that situation?
It sounds so silly and easy, but you do just have to decide. I very vividly recall deciding, no, I'm not going to break up with him over this. I like him. We're going to stick it out, see what happens. And I ended up marrying him, so that worked out well. I mean, that might not work out like that for everyone, but
no,
like you do need to make a decision, and you need to remember why you made that decision, and work through it.
And I forget, did you get any therapy, or did you do this all on your own?
No, I did this all on my own. I was a little scared to go to therapy because I thought, what if it works? Yeah. I wanted to be able to step down at my own pace.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember at the height of this, it was like, I want this to stop interrupting my life, but I was afraid of it going away completely because it's such a source of comfort. Right? So
I still don't want it to go away completely. But I do want to be able to manage it, when I want, because it does make, as you get older, like Karina said, major life decisions for you. If you don't decide what you want for your life, the MD will.
Right.
I like that person you saw on Facebook. I let promotions pass me over because I didn't want to interfere with my lifestyle, my free time. I have put off having a second child for several years now because the first one took away so much time.
Yeah.
And I regret that. I wish I had my kids closer together, but yeah.
And, you're doing amazing things, not just for yourself, but for the entire community, supporting and inspiring other people. I want to go back to that list. So I've got morning routine, social media, music. For some people, I think they need medication. Others, I'm hearing, again, I'm not a doctor, but just I'm hearing anecdotally, for some people, the medication works. For some people, it doesn't. Some people can do it without it. I found that my daydreaming was so compulsive that I really did medication. I don't think I could have done it without medication, but, I don't know. I'm not sure, but anything else to add to that list? And I think it's important with music. It's like whatever your trigger is, whether it's music or social media, maybe trying to limit your triggers is a good thing. But any other advice, either one of you, on anything to add to that list?
I've been, yes. I guess social interaction. Like one of the big things that has always helped me, since I started doing it anyway, is I really, really pushed myself to start keeping up with relationships. When I haven't talked to someone in a while, just sending them a text, not turning down invitations. Someone says, "Hey, I'm having a barbecue on Sunday." I would say, yeah, maybe, and then not go. I'd stay in bed. But now I'm going. Like, I've never turned down an invitation within reason. And that helps. That helps getting out there and rebuilding your social connections. And that's, with the last year, That's kind of
Harder.
a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. Yeah. I mean, one of the advice I give people when they email me, because I get emails from people all over the world, is I do agree, whether it's social engagements, the more you're engaged in real life, the less time you have to daydream. So I found when I was younger taking acting class was one class that I was solely focused on what was going on and I wasn't daydreaming. So it's like the more you engage with your favorite people, your favorite hobbies, the less, at least in that time period, you're going to be tempted to daydream. Karina, would you agree with that? And do you have any?
Yeah, I agree completely. Going off what Kristen said, now that I gave up my social media and I don't like, I'm on my phone and I don't go on a lot of those apps. So I'll go to my text messages and just reach out to people and just be like, hey, how are you? And I feel like in a way that's better, because I feel like this day and age, we communicate a lot through what people are up to on social media. And now I feel like it's a bit more personal. Like when I speak to people, if it's on the phone or if we FaceTime, it's like, oh, like, what have you been up to? And it feels more real. I feel more present rather than just seeing it on social media. And I think it's been a good way. Well, for me personally, like, I've been reaching out more to some of my family members that I didn't feel really close with before. And I think a big part of that was due to the daydreaming. I just didn't feel comfortable with a lot of my family members. I was always daydreaming at parties too, so I wouldn't interact with them. And I feel like now, reaching out to them, especially now, I feel like in a way more connected with people. Going back to what you said, how once you start engaging more in real life and doing more activities, it definitely makes it easier to be present and not in your daydreams.
Yeah. And it also, in a way, can flip it. Because when you tell yourself just not to do something, like don't daydream, like I need to reduce my daydreaming time. That's really, really hard. But when you do the opposite, instead of telling yourself you have to reduce the daydream time, I have to increase my time at my favorite hobby or with favorite people, or then all of a sudden you just have less time to daydream, right? The more time you're actively engaged, the less time you have to daydream. So it's a way to flip it. I do want to talk a little bit about COVID, but I think the two of you are so inspiring. Just for someone else watching this, you can, while we're still in the process of overcoming. Kristen, it does sound like you are getting 3 more hours of sleep a night. Any other differences, I think, between like now and the height of your maladaptive daydreaming?
I mean, yeah, the difference is stark. At the height of my daydreaming, I could go for days. I think Karina had mentioned routine.
Yep.
That has been very helpful. I mean, it's changed so much. It used to be a job and now it's parenting. But then with the past year, even that, my routine became, get the kid to school, and now it's remote, and then it was, back in school, and now remote again, and
So let's turn to that now first. But I do want everyone seeing this to see that here's an example of two women whose lives has changed profoundly. They're still daydreaming, but it's so much more in control based on using the techniques that we mentioned. Right? Would both of you agree with that? And which means that it's doable. It's hard, and just like anything, it's hard and there'll be setbacks, but the two of you have had amazing changes in your lives because of your hard work and trying these techniques. So anyone out there watching this, you can do that too. Now, again, I think Kristen said it, it's not an overnight thing. It's not like you throw out your earbuds and then tomorrow you're not daydreaming. It is a step-by-step thing. And I would say don't be too hard on yourself. Reward yourself for trying, and give yourself props for trying and reducing it a little bit.
I would add, just while we're talking to people who haven't started this process yet, it gets worse. I don't want to scare anybody off of it, but in my case anyway, just speaking from personal experience, when I started stepping down the daydreaming, all the other problems that I never noticed I had started showing themselves. So it felt for quite a while like like I was getting a lot worse. But it's not, yeah, it's not a line. It's a,
no healing is, it's up and down. And that's why I know, and everyone does things differently, but I don't think it's a bad idea to do this. In fact, I think it's a good idea to do this with the help of a mental health professional for that reason. Right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about before that a therapist might not have ever heard of maladaptive daydreaming because it's not in the DSM yet, but that you want to find someone who's willing to read about it, willing to learn about it. They can read some of the articles that are on the Jane Rachel, the Overcoming website. But it could be helpful to have someone with you as you're processing these things that could come up.
Yeah, definitely be aware of it. If you know you have anxiety or depression, just be aware you might see it more. And if you don't know you have those things, like know that it might come up, and you got to address like all the aspects together, or they're going to oscillate on you, and you're going to feel like you're making no progress.
Because in some cases, maladaptive daydreaming can be a coping mechanism for other things in our lives. So when you told that coping mechanism, you know how you do have to deal with these other instances in your life. But you both now brought up COVID. So it sounds like you made huge strides prior to COVID through your own hard work. But COVID is making things a little bit more difficult. Either we want to jump in and talk about how it's making things a little more difficult.
I can add on to that. I think for me, I've been working remote since March. So at first, I mean, I've gone through different stages. There's days where I feel like I'm going crazy because, like I'll just be at home or working in my room. And, sometimes I'll be like, oh, let me take a break and listen to music. And then I'll listen to music while I'm supposed to be working. But it's, luckily for my job, it's very flexible, and we're not working like full days right now. But then at the same time, being home with family and my parents, I have people coming and checking in on me while I'm in my room. So that part has been good. I know everyone's situation is different. They're either living by themselves in their apartment, or they're, with families during quarantine. But for me, it's been both good and bad because I've been home a lot, but then I've also been with family who I'm always interacting with. So, because I know for sure, if I lived by myself, I would have been just lost daydreaming, and it would have been really difficult.
So what does someone do if they live by themselves? Because a lot of people do. I think we go back to what we talked about before, is reaching out to people, scheduling those Zoom meetings, scheduling phone calls, scheduling walks, because I do think COVID, I mean, we both mentioned routine being really important to helping you reduce the daydreaming, and COVID is really messing with our routines.
Yeah, so. And I do make like a to-do list before I go to bed, just so I'll kind of have in my brain when I wake up, okay, I have, stuff to do, and try to stick to that. And I think that's helped a whole lot, because I know if I have nothing planned, I know right away I'll want to daydream. So having something that I write down, I feel like I have to complete it, because I already committed to it in a way. So that's definitely helped for me in trying to set a routine.
That's actually, so in the years, my younger years before I got the daydreaming under control, people ask, well, like, how could you go to law school and how could you do well in college? It was lists. That's what got me through my day. And I would be like, okay, you can't, you can daydream while you're getting ready to go, but you can't daydream anymore until you get 1 and 2 up of your list. And then you can daydream for a half an hour, and then you got to do 3 and 4. And it's how I succeeded at achieving goals while still daydreaming. But I do think it made it harder for me to still be present in the here and now and enjoy life. But that is, lists are what got me through.
Yeah.
Kristen, any thoughts on COVID? Or, because we don't want people who are doing really well all of a sudden to be derailed because of COVID. Although I will say that's not just maladaptive daydreaming. I think mental health problems across the board, people are struggling with COVID.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this similar, like now, my husband, I've I'm a stay-at-home mom, so it's like nothing about that changed, except that my husband is now working remote, so he's here all day. And when my son is doing remote school, you know, it's every 10 minutes, Mommy, what's this word? Mommy, I accidentally clicked out of the window. And it's before, you know, through my day when I'm getting stuff done, I have the time to decide, like, am I going to do the dishes now or do this then, or, you know, daydream for 20 minutes because nobody else is here. Who cares? But now that's gone. There's people here all the time. And it makes me angry. Because I guess because of the addiction aspect, where people interrupt you but you have the urge to continue. So you just get the irritability.
Yeah.
So that's been what I've needed to work on, is the not being irritated when it happens. And I don't even know how to address that without just like, because that doesn't go away until the addiction goes away.
Yeah.
So
what's so interesting is there's kind of two opposite sides here. It's like, one, if you're alone, there's more time to daydream, right? Because you're alone more, right? That's what's happening with COVID. But for other people who've got families, you've got your family interrupting you more, so you actually have less time. So I think some people are experiencing one, and some people are experiencing the other, but they both can make MD.
Yeah, I mean, and it's good in the sense that they're keeping me engaged.
Yeah.
You know, that is helping break the addiction, but I haven't caught up to it enough yet where I can be not pissed about it. If that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And it's, as I said, I mean, one of the advice I give to people is, especially in this time of COVID, let's be a little less hard on ourselves, right? If there's a day where you daydream all day, be like, okay, that was yesterday. Today, let's try again. Because in these COVID times, mental health it is more difficult to handle. So let's try to be nicer to ourselves, but that doesn't mean let's not give up the quest on being able to limit this so that it's not interfering with our lives. And I think we're about at done with time, but I would like, if you don't mind, if you both just take whatever 30 seconds to a minute, just like with some closing thoughts on like what you would like other people to know out there about maladaptive daydreaming, whether it's someone who doesn't understand it at all, or whether it's someone who's going through it right now. And I think both of your stories, while you're not completely there yet, show a lot of hope and inspiration that, there are people out there, Kristen, who think, oh, I can't have a successful relationship. I can't have a kid because I'm going to be daydreaming all the time. And you are proof that you can. And Karina, you are proof that you were able to limit it, and that you are doing well. So I guess it doesn't matter who wants to go first, but if one of you just want to give some closing thoughts to, why don't you go? Anything I may miss? Just
yeah, I don't know what I want people to know.
I can say something. Well, I guess I'm coming from I'm in my mid-20s right now, trying to just advance in my career. I'm a recent college graduate. My sister graduated last month during the pandemic, so it's been really hard for us, looking for jobs, and people in that group, just everyone struggling in one way or another right now. Yeah. So like you said, it's, it's like that balance between don't be too hard on yourself, but also make a push to just try to be better, to try to limit it. I mean, so for all of you, whoever's listening who feels, stuck, or, there's, no hope, I'm trying every day to limit it in one way or another, the daydreaming, and just be more invested, and, just trying to push myself just to, now that I don't have interactions with people, I'm just competing with myself in a way, just trying to better at it, know what I want, write down goals. So whenever I try to like if I was ever sad, I would always refer to like my daydreams. That was my outlet. And I feel like now I'm writing down my own goals for myself. Um, Something that's not like it's like apart from the daydreams. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm trying to like sort of split both of those worlds, separate them, and that's helped a lot for me. So just like whoever's dealing with this, don't be too hard on yourself. It's okay to still daydream every once in a while. That's still fine. And I mean, it's really a trial and error process, really. Like, and it takes time, so just be patient.
Exactly. And I think you're just a huge example. I hear from parents of little kids. They're like, oh my God, they're never going to be able to get through college. They're never going to be able to get married. They're never going to be able to get a job because of the daydreaming. And I think that both of you are proof and an inspiration that that's not true. Doesn't mean that we don't struggle with it, but we can overcome it. Kristen, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
Any parting thoughts?
I think especially over the past year and stuff, it's so easy to be like, what's the point of it? You're not going anywhere. Nobody's coming over. Even if I wanted to, I can't go out there and do these things that everybody's recommending. I'm stuck inside anyways. What's even the point
Of limiting, what's the point of limiting the daydreaming?
Yeah. And there is a point, though. I mean, if you're even watching this video, I assume you were considering it. There was some reason. You have some motivation, and you got to keep that. You got to remember it. I think there's a word for it in psychology. It's called like motivational interviewing, something like that. Where you got to, sometimes you just got to remind yourself, and especially where everything's all disrupted. Like Karina was saying, like it's you got to do it for yourself.
Yeah, and absolutely. And COVID makes it harder, but it's not doable. Like you can have game night over the internet. You can have happy hours over the internet. So I think it's really putting routine in despite COVID. You can do it. Putting more social engagement, less social media, more social engagement, and taking it baby steps, because you both, I think, have improved so much. But as Kristen said, it didn't happen overnight. How long did it take you to reduce the daydreaming time before bed, or you getting these 3 extra hours of sleep?
With that was just getting rid of music, and that took, I don't know, I want to say like 2 years. As far as reducing daydreaming overall, it's an ongoing process. But I mean, I've been doing that for 8 years, and that probably makes me sound like a kind of a failing story here, but no, it's
not at all. Right? You're married with a child. I think that's going to give a lot of people inspiration. But the reality is, like anything that feels like an addiction, it's time, and it's not going to happen overnight.
It probably would have been a lot faster with the help of a therapist too. I decided not to do that, but other people, that it'll probably go better.
I mean, I think it's just good, because as the daydreaming goes down, you have other issues to deal with. But no, I think you're both an inspiration, and I think doesn't mean that we all don't have our bad days, but you've got an extra 3 hours a night of sleep. That's a pretty big deal. So I want to thank you both. I hope this shows people out there that yes, it's not easy, but there are some tips. And if you're thinking about seeing a mental health professional, just remember that they might not understand it first, but you can give them material about it. And if they don't listen, find someone else who's willing to learn, because they are out there. So thank you both. I greatly appreciate it.